All right. We got this thing ready to go. It is going. Shalom, everyone. God bless you. I'm going to turn this guy on. People on the broadcast be a little bit upset at me. They can't hear me.
Yeah, that's true.
Alan? Yeah. Tell Patty to grab a couple of batteries that fit the mics.
Double A's?
Double A's.
Okay.
They're in my office.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's going to go dead on me before. Because we've used it like 3 times now or so. Well, it's good to see everyone. And Friday night session, so it's an open session. We can talk about anything you want and talk as long as you want. Brother Alan and Patty will be in here in just a couple of minutes. Sister Connie was not feeling well, so Daniel stayed home to take care of her. I always say that. I'm sure he's not really taking care of her, but he stayed home with her. And I am going to go over some things. Is this January 3rd? Yeah. This is our first New Year's message.
Yeah.
Not a message tonight. It's just a fellowship for everyone. Fellowship of the year in 2019. I went over several things. Really, the last 4 or 5, we went over several things. And I went over 2019, and we went over just so many things. And I wrote down, I said, this is kind of my vision for where we're headed in 2020. So I was, thank you. I was waiting on Alan to get in just a little bit. He's with an electrician who is taking care of my kitchen. And everybody showed up at once. Electrician, and Pebbles got hurt, and everything went on. So I'm here just taking my time for just a minute. I hope everyone is having a great start on your new year. We've not had any bad weather yet. Rain. And some people like snow, and others are just happy it rains so you don't have all that snow laying around. It's real pretty the first day. Snow always is. Just beautiful. And the second day it kind of gets old real quick. The third day it's time to bury it. So, but some people really like the snow. And for those of you that have never seen it before other than in a picture, I will say this, you'll like it for a little while, but not all the time. And it's very, very cold. It has to be below 32 degrees in order to snow and stick. It's 32 or below, and that freezes it. And the beautiful part of the snow is when it is snowing, it is so quiet. It's like a silence. And I was reading about that the other day, and it said the reason that happens, rain doesn't do it, but when snow's coming down, that happens because the flakes are in a formation that actually pushes the sound to the ground. So you're not hearing hardly anything. It's all, a lot of what you would normally hear is pushed down to the ground, and you can't hear it. And so that was kind of neat, I thought. You know, after all these years, I used to think, boy, why is it so quiet when it snows? So it's because there's no sound, or at least it pushes the majority of the sound to the ground. So today we're going to take time to go through a little bit. The 2020, I called it a year of vision, and it's 2020. That's pretty good vision. I remember when I went to the doctor and I'd been having a lot of trouble with my eyes, and they gave me something called REDS, and they said men that go over 40 years old, once you get over 40, the retina of the eye changes and it actually forms a shadow that looks red. And they said that's what was going on with my eyes, and so they gave me that medicine, and I took it for a while and just prayed about it, and my eyesight kept getting better and better and better, and today I bring glasses with me simply because if you get down to the font size of like a 6 or a 7, I have to have glasses to read that. But if you get up above like an 8, 10 on up, I don't need glasses at all. And my eyes are doing very well. And I was thinking about that. The doctor told me, he said, the last time I was there, it was in Dayton Institute, and they said I had, he said, you don't have 20/20 vision anymore. And I said, oh no. And he said, no, what you got is 10/10. And he said, very few people get into the 10s. And he said, your eyes are that good. So I was happy to hear that. And maybe the rest of my body won't last so long, but my eyes will be around for a good while. And so we're going to talk a little bit about 20/20 vision and about 2020, the year, and the kind of vision that I had. And I was thinking about all of the if you remember, I talked to you about all the cycles. Those cycles, there are so many different cycles. I mean, I named off 4 or 5, but there are just literal thousands of cycles your body's going through every day. Cell cycles, and then from cell cycles you go into the cycles of a man and the things that his body cycles through every so many days. The woman's body cycles through every so many days. You got your heavenly cycles, the moon and the sun cycles, the earth cycle itself. So many cycles that you are going through without even thinking about it every day. And I took us through the individual cycles that I saw, and those individual cycles were from darkness to light. And if you remember that, it went from the darkness into unrest, in rest and understanding. And then there were the seals, the cycle of the candles, which out of the candles is a chakra, and it has the 7 candles. Out of the chakra comes the seals and the trumpets and the thunders and the vials and the new heaven, new earth. All those things keep rolling. And then we had the cycle of resurrection, and we had all these different cycles, pulling them from the individual lives, pulling them from personal experience. Now we come to 2020, and I think 2019 gave us an understanding of ourselves more so than I've ever seen for myself. All the way back into 15 and 16, 14, 15, 16. Kind of taking everything out of the skies and out of the cycles and out of the movements of the earth and everything else, and we were kind of pulling it into us, but kind of wrestling around with how to handle that, gods and devils and satans and demons and holy spirits and human spirits and carnal minds and theophany minds and spiritual minds, and you could just go on and on and on. That it was we were trying to understand ourselves. Well, by the end of 2019, for those of us that have hung in there, paid attention, which are literal thousands all over the world, including me, I hung in there, I paid attention, and I learned a lot off of you, every one of you. fits, it connects. It's really beautiful. So 2020, this is our first get together, our first session, and I kind of wanted to look at Eve and women in the book of Genesis for just a minute and talk about a cycle. When we came into this civilization, the world and humanity, through intimate relationships and reproduction and procreation, when we came into this cycle, I don't know how to express this or get it across, but I'm going to say it's a woman's world. I have a woman in me. You have a woman in you. And then there's the male. Of the earth falling into humanity, it's a woman's world. All life comes from the woman. All life came from Eve. All life comes from, you just keep going down the line. The woman brings forth the children. The woman brings forth the house, and on and on. It's a woman's world. And inside you, and it's a world of learning how to pull out of, and if I can say this in the right way, pull out of a word world, pull out of a theophany world, into a world where that we acclimate to the nature of woman. We acclimate to the nature of female. We acclimate to that nature, and the male leaves his mother and father. This is in the natural even. If you pay attention to your scripture, he leaves his mother and father and goes and cleaves to the woman, to his wife. How many years and generations have you listened to it be the other way? The woman's got to give up everything and leave her mother and father and go cleave to her husband, and then she has to surrender to her husband. Well, that's all fine, and there was a time when all that happened. But now that the light is coming on our movement, our understanding, our scripture for our day, and all these different things, we're starting to see that the woman, the female, is the character that this holy thing called the Spirit wanted to bring out. And it's been coming out years, and you can see a lot of different ways that it's happened, how that women took over the world when it come to the body and how beautiful it is back through the days, and then their intellect took over the world because their frontal lobe grows and matures much faster. They're smarter than men for 30 years of their lives and everything else, and so there's just so much that acclimates the woman, and we're just starting to realize that, the female. And the male, which is what we, the Word, so to speak, we wanted to dominate with the Word. But the theophany world, the Word, and the world of the male-female split out, and the woman world, the female world, are two different worlds. And you can't take the nature that we have now and follow the Word with it. You can't do it. I don't care who you are. I don't care how hard you try. You will not be able to follow the Word. You'll have a feeling. You'll have an anger. You'll have a jealousy. You'll have a strife. You'll tell a lie. You'll get into a pinch to where there's only one way out, and you're going to take it. You're going to tell a lie. You say, Brother Parnell, just ask yourself how many times you've done it through life, from a child all the way through. Even if it's as simple a lie as you don't like the clothes your husband's wearing, and he looks at you and says, "Are these okay?" And you say, "Yeah, they're fine." And you just lied. It's in you. And a lady stands there and she gets herself all pretty, and she says to the husband, "Do you like this dress?" And he says yes, when in the back of his mind he's saying, "Don't you have something else you can wear?" But that's what we do. We do things that are lies against our nature. And when you do that, you just broke the word. You broke what the word says you're supposed to do. You broke the theophany civilization and all of its contact. You broke the honesty. You broke all kinds of things. But why did you break it? In order to save the feelings of the person you're with and not hurt them. So that tells you very plainly, there is some things that are better off going outside the word. Just speaking the word and being done with it. There's things that are better off. So this woman's world that we stepped into, I was looking at the book of Genesis, and I ministered this message on the 7 women in the book of Genesis in Boston years ago, is all I know to say. And I remember Brother LaVale was there, and he came up to me afterwards and he said, "You can't preach what you just preached. You're not supposed to preach that." And I said, "Well, it's too late. I already did it." "But what do you mean?" And he said, "William Branham didn't teach that there were 7 women in the book of Genesis that typed out the bride and the life of Christ. He didn't teach that, so you can't teach it." And I said, "Oh, I get it now." So I said, "What I'm understanding from you, sir, is unless William Branham said it, we can't say it." He said, "That's right." I said, "Well, okay, do you really want to go that route?" And he said, "Yeah, that's exactly the way it is." And I said, "Okay, then don't ever say that William Branham was the fulfillment of what he was. He brought the scripture up, he laid it out for the people, but he never said it before. So don't ever say that again." "Oh, no." I said, "You don't say what he meant. You said, say what he said." And I said, "By the way," I said, "don't bring up Revelation 10:7 anymore and say it was William Branham, because he never said he was Revelation 10:7. He just threw the scripture out there and said there's supposed to be a prophet come that's Revelation 10:7. He never said he was it. So stop about half of your message, because every time I hear you preach, that's all it's about." And he just stood there and stared at me, and he said, so when I was young, he said, "You sometimes is the worst thing." So I said, "Yeah, sometimes you're right." But it was these 7 women that I was looking at, and I have a much better understanding of it now.
Well, I see where you're going. Okay.
And these 7 women were Eve, Noah's wife, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Tamar, and Asneth. So I never heard of some of them, Brother Parnell. Eve was Adam's wife. It doesn't give Noah's wife's name, but we know he had a wife. He had 3 children, so forth. Sarah was Abraham's wife. Rebecca was Isaac's wife. Rachel was Jacob's wife. Tamar was the son of Judah's wife, who died, and then she was passed on to another son, and he died, and then Judah wouldn't give her the 3rd son because he's afraid he'd die too. And so Tamar was 3 young men's wife under Judah, who was a son of Jacob. And then there's Asneth. If you go over to like Genesis, the 50th chapter or so, you'll find that this was Joseph's wife. So you had Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, and Joseph. And those 7 women were their wife. And so when I took a good look at that, I thought, we've been talking about cycles in 2019. And you can pour me one of those too, will you? We've been looking at these cycles in 2019. And I went back and I took another look at these women. And Eve did what? Took us all into what we call total darkness. S-I-N, unbelief. Eve was the beginning, and if you remember the 7 dimensions and the 7 cycles, and the trumpets and the seals and the vials and the thunders and the candles and all those cycles, all of them start out with darkness and they keep moving through, evolving to understanding. So Eve was that, quote, darkness that put us into an unknown position where we had never been in all of creation, in all of eternity. There had never been a sexual relationship in the earth, in the theophany civilization, in the spoken word civilization. There had never been any of that. Eve took us into the unknown. Darkness. That's all darkness is. It's not like dark out here. Darkness is just the unknown. And then they came into this unknown and they changed the elements of the earth. They took on the elements and they changed it. Well, who's the one that brought the greatest catastrophe and changed the earth so completely that it had ice caps on both ends, it had clouds it never had, it went into all kinds of things about the earth. It had huge gashes where it was gushed open and broken and everything else. And it was Noah's wife and Noah. They entered the ark and they went through these things. So that's your second. You go from darkness into the elements. And then there's Sarah. And after they came out of the ark, Nimrod built Babylon, and then Abraham came over here and he began the civilization of Israel and many other nations. But Sarah stepped into time. It took 2,000 years almost, 1954 years from Abraham to Christ. And so Sarah was that time element that started all those things off and stepped us into time. And time slows everything down. Darkness doesn't slow everything down. Elements don't slow everything, but time slows everything down. When you take a piece of eternity and you encapsulate it, you slow it down, you put it through the prism, and all of those colors begin to show up, and all of those manifestations begin to show up in this little space of time. And everything that was in her and Abraham was called the bosom of the Father, and all of these different things. So Sarah was that perfect woman manifesting and bringing out time. And then you step into Isaac, and there have been prophecies, there have been all those things, and you step into Isaac, you come to Rebekah, and you know where Rebekah was. She was outside of the little relation of time of Sarah and Abraham. And Abraham said, Isaac, I want you to go out here and explore. I want you to begin to look. And Eliezer, I want you to go with him. And I want you to find him a wife that is a part of us. So they went out and they began to search for a wife for Isaac. And they brought forth Rebekah. And Rebekah was that exploration to bring in another entity into their whole process of time. Rebekah was it. She was a beautiful type of science coming in. Once you begin to move out of the darkness, once you begin to evolve in the elements, and you begin to have enough time to start discovering everything, then comes science. Then comes all of these things, that all of these discoveries, all of these ideas, all of these inventions, on and on and on. And Rebekah was that perfect type of that. And then you come to Jacob, who is the son of Isaac, and of course Esau. And Rachel was the lady that Jacob wanted to choose. He wanted to have her. He wanted her to be his wife. But you know what began to happen? Here he was working on the farm of Laban, and Laban said, if you work 7 years, you can have Rachel. Work for me 7 years, make my land prosper, show to me that that you're going to make money for me. You're going to bring more cattle. You're going to bring more sheep. You're going to make me a prosperous man. Show me that. Work for 7 years. You can have Rachel. And so Jacob worked through all that unrest, making Laban rich. And that's what that Rachel, that's the lady who, after science, you come into unrest because you're trying to look at everything that you're discovering and figure out how I'm able to put an identification to it, I guess is the best way to put it. And so at the end of 7 years, they had a ceremony, and they all got drunk, and Laban put a veil over Leah's face. Leah was the older sister of Rachel. And he sent her into the tent with Jacob. Total unrest. Jacob wakes up the next morning and looks around and says, "Oh my God, what happened here? This is not Rachel." And Laban said, "Well, Leah was older than Rachel, and I cannot have one of my daughters marry without the oldest one marrying." And so he gives all of his excuses, and it put them all in total unrest. They were in unrest for 14 long years because he said, "You work for me another 7 years, and I'll give you Rachel." That was a tough situation for Jacob. Rachel was in total unrest, thinking she would be with her husband, and she couldn't be. Rachel was in total unrest going through the second 7 years, and then in the meantime, Jacob had feelings against Laban. He took poplar sticks, threw them on the water for the cattle, and he told Laban, he said, "I'll make a deal with you. You give me, since you done me the way you did, you give me all the spotted cattle, and I'll give you all the cattle that are not spotted." Well, the poplar sticks caused the cattle to be spotted, so Jacob took almost everything. And so there was a battle between Jacob and Laban. And after 7 years, Jacob got Rachel, and they moved from unrest into enlightenment. Enlightenment meaning that what you understand is going to come to pass. What your desire is going to happen. Although there's all kinds of unrest, there is enlightenment in all that unrest because you are learning preservation of the seed, preservation of you, preservation of who you are, preservation of your identification. You're learning all those things. If you go over into Genesis, I think it's the 38th chapter, you know, it's going through a long story of all of Abraham's seed, and then it stops for a moment, and it talks about someone else in the 38th chapter of Genesis, and that is Tamar. And Tamar was the wife of Judah. No, I'm sorry. She was the wife of Judah's son. And so Judah's son died. And if you read, I'm going to get over here and read just a little bit of it. My fingers are terrible, so just bear with me. Genesis 38. We come to enlightenment. And it came to pass about at the time that Judah departed from his brothers, that was all the sons of Jacob, 12 of them, he departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her. So he conceived and bore a son, and he named him Er. Then she conceived again and bore a son, named him Onan. She bore yet another son, named him Shelah. And it was at Chezrib that she bore them. Now Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. So then there's 2 chapters all about Tamar and how the woman coming from darkness was now moving into enlightenment through the elements, through time, through science, through unrest, and now Tamar. Now, Tamar was a very faithful lady, but Judah's firstborn died. The Lord took his life. He was an evil man, it says. Then Judah said to Onan, go in to your brother's wife. You go take Tamar according to the ways of life, and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about preservation of seed. Judah wanted his seed to keep going on through his sons, and one son couldn't, so let's use the wife of that son, and the other son go in with her and become her husband and bring forth, preserve the seed that was supposed to come forth. So Judah said to Onan, you go in. Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, because under the writings of the laws, it's the elder brothers. Judah wanted to go in to her, and he wasted his seed on the ground. And all of us knows what that means. He wouldn't put his seed in the lady in order not to give offspring to his brother. So here's Tamar coming through all of this unrest and moving into enlightenment, which enlightenment is the connection or the preservation of seed. And so, but when he did this, it was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, so he took his life also. Then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, remain a widow. Just be the way you are in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought, I'm afraid that he too may die like the other brothers if I give him to Tamar. Now after a considerable time, the brothers grew, but Judah didn't give his son to Tamar. And Tamar had come to the enlightenment of preservation. And she loved, and she wanted a child from that to be the firstborn sons, even though it would be the third son that got with her. It's the firstborn son. And she wanted that to happen. Now Tamar had come to an enlightenment of what she needed to do. And what the woman needed to do was completely go against the word. And that sounds like Brother Parnell, come on. She knew the only way that she could get seed. She couldn't go to that son. Judah had kept him away from her. So this is what Tamar did. She went, and she was a widow. She had a widow's clothes on, black clothes and so forth, and robe. And she was in her tent. And she went and got prostitutes' clothes. She went against all of the lines of generations of word. She went and got a prostitute's clothes to preserve life. And it was getting down close to sheep. Judah and his brethren came down from the mountains to shear the sheep. And Tamar put on her prostitute's clothes and went and met up with Judah. And Judah didn't know it was her. And Judah placed his seed in the woman. Now, Scripture says a woman ought to do. But that is exactly what is needed in this world for us to understand ourselves completely, is stop thinking about all of the rules and regulations and all those things that we have to go by in order to be a good person, a good man, a good woman, a good this and that. And think about preservation. Think about life. Think about no matter what it takes, outside the word or whatever, bringing forth that seed of love. She loved that firstborn, and she was going to have him a seed one way or another, and she preserved that life. Well, she goes out, Judah takes her prostitute's clothes off, puts her widow's clothes on, goes back into the tent, and stays there. Well, before she left, she asked Judah if he had something, some kind of token that he could give her. And so he had a ring. And he took the ring off and he gave it to the woman. He said, this is a token that we've been together. And she said, I see you have a staff there, a shepherd's staff. She said, could I have that staff too? So Judah gave her the staff. So she goes back to her tent with the staff of Judah and with the ring of Judah and with the baby of Judah. And she stays in the tent for months. And finally, like every woman will do, when they're pregnant, when they're with child, they're going to show. And one of the servants went to Judah and said, hey, listen, I know that Tamar, this sixth woman here, I know that she is supposed to be a widow, but Judah, I was down there the other day, and she's no widow, man. She's going to have a baby. She's showing. Judah said, what? He said, I will burn her with fire. She went against the theophany. She went against the word. She went against all of these things. But she did it by enlightenment and by love for the seed and for the husband. And when she did that, Judah goes down to the tent and he calls her out. Tamar, come out here. Let's watch everybody get real enlightened now. She steps out. She's standing there. She's pregnant. It's showing. And Judah said, I am going to burn you with fire. You have been the prostitute when you were supposed to be a widow to my son. Well, she wasn't supposed to be a widow to his son. She was supposed to have went with his third son to have a child for his son. But Judah broke the word and then turned around and said, I'm going to burn you with fire for breaking the word. And so Tamar, she brought on a little bit of enlightenment. She opened everybody's eyes to a good understanding. She said, well, okay, if you want to burn me for being a prostitute, you go ahead and do that. But I have something to reveal here before you do that. And he said, okay, what is it? She said, I have a ring and I have a staff. And this ring and this staff, whoever these two are, whoever these belong to, this is his baby. And everybody was in total shock because it was right out in front of them, Judah's ring and Judah's staff. And they looked at Judah, and the words that came out of Judah's mouth brought him to some great enlightenment, because he makes the statement, you're more righteous than I am. He woke up to the fact that when enlightenment comes, listen to me, stop worrying about how you got there. Stop worrying about, is this the right way to go? Did I take the right path? When you come to enlightenment, you just thank everything around you that you got to that enlightenment, and it doesn't matter how you got there. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter about the process. It doesn't matter about any of those things. What matters is you had a vision and a love for that first love, and you done whatever you needed to do to come to that enlightenment. And Judah took her into his house. So we see these women, and then that brings us to a rest. It brings us to an understanding, if you don't want to call it a rest. You come to an understanding. You get enlightened. You come out of darkness. You form the elements into the body that you are. You moved into time and brought it all in, times and season. You went through science and discovery and all those things, and then you come into unrest, and you went through all of these works to get where you wanted to go, and then you came into enlightenment, you became prostitute, you look at yourself and you said, you know, the thing that I thought was going to burn in hell and was going to be completely annihilated is the thing that I became in order to get here. I wore prostitute's clothes, I walked through darkness, I was in total unrest, and I was in science discovering everything, and sciences of hell, darknesses of hell, total unrest is of hell. I was living in hell. But I come to enlightenment there. And I came to understanding that hell and heaven are the same. The lake of fire is the Holy Spirit. And the lake of fire is where everybody goes to, and we all got used to calling that hell. When the lake of fire is a purging fire that purges out all the dross, all the darkness, all those things, and it brings you out as a whole person, understanding yourself and saying, yes, I was a prostitute, and that's okay. I know where I'm at now. Yes, I was in total unrest, and that's okay. I have figured it out now. Yes, I was in all these things, but now I'm in the light. I come to a total understanding. Then we come to Joseph's wife. Asenath means the goddess of the pyramids. Church ages, all the things about the pyramids and everything else, we look at it. And Asenath brought us to a total understanding, or the goddess of the pyramids. And Asenath was an Egyptian woman. She was the daughter of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh took Joseph and said, I'm going to put you over the house of the pyramids, Joseph. And Asenath, who is the goddess over the pyramids, will be your wife. So you had the god and goddess of the pyramids, and the male and the female become one, and was over the pyramids, over the revelation, over the understanding, and was able to look back across all that ever happened to them and know that they had passed through into rest. Now, Asenath, she did something for Joseph, and that was she had 2 sons. And those 2 sons that she had and she brought forth were a mix. I was telling somebody the other day, you get a mixed race of people, or a mixed genetics of people. Everybody calls them everything from colored to mulatto to whatever. They don't have enough about them to realize that all of these things are of the Lord. So here Asenath was, and she had 2 children from Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. And so when they were getting ready to be blessed by Jacob, and Jacob took his hands and crossed them. And Joseph said, not so, Father, not so. And he said, I've already done it. And he crossed them, and he blessed the one and the other. He blessed them both, but he crossed the hands, showing that through the cross, all families, all generations, and all makes of people, and all races, if you want to call them that, they were all accepted through the cross. And Asenath, who was a Gentile, and Joseph, who was a Jew, brought forth 2 children who were blessed by Jacob and put out into the earth, and they were, quote, mixed seed genetically. And here we are at the end of the 7 church ages, and that's exactly what we are. We are spiritually mixed seed genetically. We are Gentiles, we are Jews, we are Greeks, we are Africans, we just go on and on and on. Native American, we're a huge pot, a mix of all those children, and the cross takes care of all of it. The cross puts every one of us in exactly where we deserve to be. No one is lost. That's what Joseph and Asenath and Ephraim and Manasseh are all about. Egypt and the Jew, or Egypt and the Hebrew, coming together and becoming one, or God and Satan coming together, or righteousness and unrighteousness coming together, or a half person good and a half person bad, and the halves come together and become one whole person in our revelation. That's what's going on right now, all around us. And nobody wants to say that. Everybody wants to keep separation going on. Everybody wants to keep sin on the earth. We're all accepted now. That's the scripture. That's the types. That's the shadows. He died not only for his own, but for the world also. John said it. Different ones said it. We are now in a place to where everything is totally accepted by the Spirit. Now, yes, the Spirit wants to change some things about us. You say, how do you know that, Brother Parnell? Because I want to change some things about myself. And I'm in the image of the Spirit. So if I want to change things, I'm sure that the Spirit, the all in all, the great Spirit, wants to change some things too. I just put out a little, if you see it on Facebook on my wall, it's George Carlin. And he was a comedian, but in all of his comedian was some pretty straightforward, honest truths. Mm-hmm. And so it was the one, it's called Save the Planet. And I laughed all the way through it, but everything he was saying was true. And that's exactly where we're at now. We are at the point to where the planet is ours. When we talk about saving the planet, well, let me give you a little secret. The planet's been here for about 4.5 billion years. I don't think we're going to cause the planet to be lost. I don't think we're going to. One of the facts he brought out was we're all time wanting to save a species. And he said, there are 25 species a day that disappear. And science says that 90% of all species that have lived on the earth are now gone. 90%. They go away all the time. And stop worrying about the planet. Stop worrying about we're going to destroy the planet. We've been here 20,000 years. The planet's 4.5 billion years old. I think it knows how to take care of itself. Yes, we are stewards, and yes, we should be nice, and yes, but stop worrying about the planet. When you're long gone and you go to another phase of your life, you may rotate back through this planet a dozen times and it'll still be here every time. There's nothing wrong with this planet. And there's not enough human beings to make it wrong. There's not enough human beings to destroy the planet. I heard one guy one time, I can't remember who it was, he said, we're just like, when humans get so bad, he said the planet is just like a dog. He said it has surface fleas and just shakes them off. And that's what happens so many times, is catastrophes take place. You say, all these catastrophes is because of this and this and this. Believe me, these catastrophes happen for population purposes, for understanding, for all kinds of things. We're coming into science, and science, strict, straightforward science, not climate change, strict, straightforward science knows that this earth is changing and changing and changing and will always change, and it'll go through hundreds and hundreds of thousands and billions of years of change, and it'll be here. It might be in a different form, it might be in a different way, it might be a different shape, it might be a whole lot of things. It might not have a human on the planet for a while, who knows? But the planet's not going anywhere. The planet is the body of the Lord. The planet is the body of the Holy Spirit. It's not going anywhere. Love it, take care of it, be a steward of it, but don't be foolish enough to think that you can harm it beyond repair. You can't do it. It is self-correcting. It will take care of itself. We are discovering these things now. Coming through from darkness all the way to rest, we are discovering these things now. Understand Sunday. As we understand our worth, we're beginning to understand our value. We're beginning to understand so many things about ourselves that we didn't understand before, that we took for granted, that we, because of teachings around us, we constantly thought we were unworthy, not worth anything, not valued. Maybe your teachers made you feel that way. Maybe your friends picked on you through school. Maybe your parents done whatever, abused you, language, physically, whatever it might be. And 90%, 94% of the world, I think, actually has an unfavorable view of themselves. Well, I'm one of the 6%. I don't have an unfavorable view of myself. I understand who I am. I may get knocked down. I may get hurt. I may weave and bob for a while. I may go off by myself for a while. But when I come out, I understand who I am. And I am not going to say that I'm not worthy. I'm not going to say I'm not good enough. I know who I am now. I have that understanding, and each one of us should. Coming through these 7 women, they are our characters of passing through darkness and elements and times and seasons and science and unrest and rest and understanding and enlightenment. You're going through it all the time. And that's what those women were about. Brought on catastrophes and everything else. And the world will always have those. Always. What age were there not catastrophes? But it just keeps moving on. It keeps moving on. Humanity takes care of itself, and it evolves, and it keeps moving on. So we're coming to that understanding now. In joining spirituality and science into humanity. This is what Tamar did. She took all, if you look at the long line, she took all that she had learned about the law, about how creation started, about how she had to change her elements from a widow to a prostitute, about how she had to come to an understanding of science. If I am going to reproduce, which is a procreation scientific thing, I'm going to have to figure out a way. And since I can't get to that boy, there's one more way, and that's the Father. And she scientifically, spiritually figured out how to change her elements, zero in and focus on what she wanted, go after the seed, and preserve that seed for the love of her husband. Not for the love of being a prostitute. Not for the love of doing any of those things, but for the love of her husband to preserve the seed. She became a great scientist and understood it. Understanding our worth and acclimating our understanding with the earth. We'll get into that more, but if you don't acclimate yourself to what the earth is producing, you're going to be the most dissatisfied person. You're going to be a person who is unhappy about everything. You're going to be a person who fulfills very few goals and desires in your life because you're going to be so busy worried about every little thing, the way you mess this up and the way you mess that up and the way you raise your children and the way you treated your wife and the way you did this and that. All of those things you should work on all the days of your life, but you need to acclimate to the earth. You don't need to acclimate to being a theophany. That's over. You're never going to go back to the theophany that you were, ever. You may go back into a theophany form, but that theophany back there had no logic, no understanding, or had logic but no understanding, it didn't know itself. When you go back into a theophany form now, it won't be the same person, because you will have all of this knowledge turned into experience. So it'll be the same being, but it certainly won't be the same character and the same person. So we make all the necessary adjustments. Acclimate to the earth, not to theophany, not to spoken word. That's what I heard for years and years and years. We need to be the spoken word. Everybody knew you couldn't be a theophany. Everybody knew that was too hard. So we jumped over to the next best thing. We'll be the spoken word, the word made flesh. Well, I'd like to, if you want to use rules and regulations on that, I'd like to sit down around each one of you for about a week, and I'll show you all the ways that you are not the spoken word. Because you can't be. What you are is a human. And that's what we need to do, is acclimate ourselves to the earth the way humans enjoy and have fun and prosper and live long lives according to the things of the earth, the things you're around, the things you learn from, the nature, the herbs, everything that's going on in the earth. Acclimate yourself to it and stop separating yourself from it. Now, we've come to a better understanding than separation. Separation doesn't do anything for you. Uniting does. And I can show you a little message preached in 1963 called Uniting Sign and Time. And there was a little Kentucky prophet that said separation is over. This is the uniting time and sign. Everything is uniting. So we're there. Make the necessary adjustments. Recasting our weaknesses to match our strengths. I'm not saying that you take your weaknesses and you make them the same thing as your strengths. But I'm saying take your weaknesses and work through those and come to a point to where that it matches the strengths of these over here. So in my weakness, I am made strong. If you are strong in over here, where's the only place you can be made stronger is in your weaknesses. So you come over here and you push your weaknesses, work on them, acclimate yourself, and work on those and push the weaknesses up to where you have a good balance. And when you do that, you'll become what's needed in the earth for connection among the human race with all things, with the planet, with the animals, with the bird kingdom, with the botany kingdom, with everything. You'll connect up. When you understand yourself, I'm not running around out here worried about, is the botany kingdom going to die? I am no more worried about that than anything. But I want to take care of the botany kingdom. I'm not out here running around saying, "Oh my God, we're human beings are so horrible. We're slaughtering animals." I'm not worried about it. The earth will take care of itself, and it'll get rid of the humans if it needs to. The earth is the body of the Holy Spirit, and it'll move the humans out and let the animals grow back if it needs to. It'll do whatever it needs to do. Bring the catastrophes, bring whatever. Acclimate. Say to yourself, I love this. I love this kingdom. I love this kingdom. I love this kingdom. And they're going nowhere. They are with me. And let that free flow through you. And stop worrying about what's going to happen to them. They're eternal, just like you and me. If we don't see them with our natural eye out here, they're still here. Honey's still here. Mm-hmm. I can't remember your dog's name. Bear. He's still here. But Brother Parnell, this happened and that happened. For whatever reason, okay. But they're right here. They're right here. They're living with us. They're in realms that we can't see with the natural eye. until we continue to flow in the right direction, and enough of a flow that we start breaking down those barriers that are all around us. And even though they're living dimensionally somewhere else, we can look at them, we can talk with them. See, I don't believe everything's going to live in this dimension. Lord, it would never all fit. But I do believe that everything lives dimensionally. And I do believe that at some point we're going to be able, just like you can look through water and see fish, but that's another dimension. You can look up into the air and see birds flying, but that's another dimension. I believe there's going to come a time we'll see the humans with us living right here. The animals living right here, but dimensionally different. And we can cross the dimensions just as easy. I think Daniel made a point that he wanted to talk about just a little bit, and that was when we were way back before the world was, in any aspect, there was just logic. And we were discussing whether we thought that was chaotic or not during that time. And I was sitting down last night for a little while, and I was just chasing it back. And I went back through all the different civilizations, and even the human civilizations, and all the different kingdoms, and took it all back. And I thought, when you go back beyond Adam, there was the spoken word world, and however long that went back, and then you break out into the unseen theophany world, and then you break back beyond that to where all of that was inside the spirit, and the spirit was the only thing, quote, in existence, and we were all in him. And he was talking about, well, would that could be more chaotic. And I thought to myself, when I took myself all the way back there and set myself down, I said, total silence. It's just total silence. And in the beginning, we spoke the word. We broke the silence and began the civilization process. Before that, it was total silence. Wasn't really chaotic. What became chaotic is the moment that we broke into the elements. And when we broke into the elements, we began to look around, and we began to manifest all of that logic that laid in silence for billions and billions and billions of years. We begin to break out of that self-existence and manifest. And then there's a lot of chaos. Until then, I would view it as silence. Now, I'd like to hear Brother Daniel's side of it. He's not here tonight, but he was going to talk some on that, and I would have liked to have heard it. It may change my view. I'm not the only. I don't have the only view, and so I want to hear that. But I personally would view complete silence coming into kind of level chaos, and it kept getting greater and greater and greater until the planet Earth, the body, the Holy Spirit said, that Spirit, the all in all, said, I need to take out of this and create one that I can put all of my anger on, that I can put all of my chaos on, that I can clean the human race with, and start a whole new process. And he did it. A brand new creation. Jesus. Day of Pentecost on out. Brand new creation. So we have these creations coming forth all the time. We make the necessary adjustments, recasting our weaknesses, remaking them. We recast the devil. We recast the red dragon. We recast all of these things of us that are in our holistic nature. And like I said, we have a list of likes and dislikes on a piece of paper. We look at them all. and we say, I'd like to change this and this, or I'd like to recast this and this and this and this so that it fits into this. That's all. That's what we're doing. And so we're learning the cycles and the processes that we needed to begin and that we needed to end. Because we need to end some processes. We need to end some cycles. When we come to a complete cycle, the cycle of the Bible is ended. I love the Bible. People think I speak against it. I love the Bible. I read the Bible. I just sat here and read to you Genesis 38. I love the Bible. It has so many teachings and so many processes in the people's lives that line up with the cycles that we're going through. Beautiful book. The best book I've ever read. I didn't say it was the most enjoyable book. I didn't say it was the most inspiring book. It was the best book I ever read. It taught me more about myself because I started looking at myself in every single person. I was Adam, I was Eve, I was Cain, I was Abel, I was Seth, you just keep coming all the way down through, and I was Nimrod, and I was Abraham, I was Judas, and I was Jesus, I was, all the way down through. Look at yourself in a holistic nature. And then deal with yourself in such a manner. Because I have some traits of Judas. I personally want to change those. I have some traits of Jesus. I personally want to make those stronger. I have all those things. I'm a holistic person. Holistic understanding. That's what this is about. Leveling the playing field in this resurrection age. This is the resurrection age of Matthew 22. And we are leveling the playing field to where that we are no longer giving nor taking in marriage. We're not trying to make somebody superior, inferior. We're not doing it, but we are as the angels. And in this resurrection, all 7 brothers have died. The woman has died. Just go read Matthew. The 7 brothers being the 7 church ages, the woman being the church, all of it has died. And we've come into a resurrection age. We've come into an age where that we are leveling the playing field, and we're all in this together, and we're all understanding these things. And every one of us have it in us to understand it, speak it, talk it, walk it, and be it. Every one of us have that in us. I didn't mean to take all the time.
That's quite all right. No, I was thinking back with you talking about all of us being here, all the dimensions, they're here on Earth in a dimensional form. Listened to a story on the internet the other day, and people say you don't believe the internet. Well, this was a true story where a lady took her son. I don't remember where it is. I'm kind of paraphrasing the story. She took her little child to catch a train, and she looked around, and her child had fallen onto the train tracks. And she looked up, and here comes a train. She knew she couldn't get her child out of there. 2 teenage boys shows up out of nowhere. She says they just show up on the tracks, lift the boy out of the tracks. She grabs her son, looks back to the boys, and they're gone. They're not there. And the train comes by. So where do those boys come from? 2 teenage boys just show up out of nowhere, get the boy off the tracks, the little boy off the railroad track, and they're gone. They came from another dimension here to help her, and they went back to where they were supposed to be.
That's right.
There's another story like that too, and I can't remember all of it, but they're all here. All the dimension, everything is here. If you need help, and one of us can't get to you, somebody will help you. Somebody will get to you and give you the help you need to get you through that moment of need. So they're here somewhere.
Yeah. Dimensionally speaking, they are just a little higher speed, a little lesser speed. Sometimes speed doesn't have anything to do with it. Light has everything to do with it. You can just say they are here, and the only thing that's blocking is our eye is not picking up that frequency of speed. Whether it's faster than light, less than light, faster than sound, less than sound, we pick up certain frequencies and we see it. And then there are certain frequencies we cannot see. They are in those, and there will come the time when we will pick those up.
Because everything is in existence. Nothing goes out of existence. We may lay this body down, but everyone is eternal. You never stop or cease being eternal. You're always somewhere.
That's right.
So, and we were talking about going back to logic. You know, I was thinking more on the lines of where we came from is perfection, absolute or perfection. Like we were talking, what makes it perfect? Or what titles it gives it that title perfection? I mean, it has no meaning there because everything is perfect. So there's nothing saying that that's perfect.
Yeah. What defines it?
What defines it? Yes. So we have to create something to step into chaos in order for that perfection to be labeled perfection.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're into a state of evolving ourselves to understand our perfection, to understand who we are.
That's right.
And that's all. That's basically the meaning of life. You're here to evolve, to become a better, more evolved being, to give your understanding and your logic meaning. Because before it didn't have meaning; it just was there.
Yeah.
Now it has meaning. Now it has understanding. Now it has a definition to it, and you take that back with you, understanding more of who you are, a more evolved being.
And you know, I was thinking as we were discussing those things, how that logic and all of those different things that we move through, we say to ourselves, we came here under amnesia. And the more I thought about that too, I just look back across it and I say, all this involvement and all this development and all these things that keep passing back and passing back and passing back. And I say to myself, where did we ever pick up amnesia? We just picked up new processes, a process we had never been in before. So we couldn't use our logic on it. We had logic there. But what we found out, you and I, is every single process we ever moved through, it didn't fit in the Word. It didn't fit there. We thought of the Word as being something else. So it's not that we took on amnesia, we took on something new. And as we take on something new, I didn't lose anything I had. I just began to see it developing in a different way than what I thought it would.
Right.
It's like dropping, what do you call it, iodine into a bowl of water. And science didn't know what in the world happened for a long time. But that black iodine, as soon as it hits that bowl of water, it disappears. Where did it go? You know, and what it does is it breaks itself down and dissolves back and becomes a process or an element within the water. It's still there, but it moved into a frequency and an element that you can't pick up with your eye. And the iodine that you was looking at in that little tube of black iodine, now it's clear, crystal clear in that water. Where is it? It's in the water. How come I can't see it? Because the process changed. The iodine didn't forget that it was iodine in that word. but it changed this process, and now it's something new, and it moves forward from there. When we dropped out of the womb of our mother and father, we just changed processes. Aubrey didn't forget everything she knew. She didn't step into amnesia. She stepped into something she didn't know at all. And Sister Nora did, I did, every one of us did. You step into something that you don't know at all. So it's not amnesia. You're just straight up learning a process that you never knew before. So you have to keep, the brain is a data process. It's a storage bin. It's a drawer to put everything in, and then go back to the drawer and open it up and get everything you want out of it. The brain is that. And when you hit a new process that you've never known before, there's nothing in the drawer. You start new. And when you start new, you begin to fill the drawer up again. And you fill it up, you fill it up, you fill it up. And then when that process is finished, you hit another one. You didn't lose all this and all this and all this and have amnesia about all these other 3 drawers. You just in a 4th drawer. And you're having to build your data again based on the process that you're going through. So I kind of, in my mind, I've walked a little bit away from the whole amnesia concept of it. And I just believe we're entering new things all the time. And as we enter those new things, we have to form, build, create, and make another drawer full of data inside the brain.
We were talking earlier today about the brain, and the brain being a storage unit, or like a computer. It's a memory. It's a hard drive that you put memory into, and it stores that memory. You can bring it up whenever you need it. But when you come through that womb, you're born here, you come through that womb, that brain is an empty storage unit. There's nothing there. So it's not really amnesia, it's just that there's nothing there yet. Your soul is the nature of your spirit. Your spirit is there, but it doesn't have a nature to it yet until that child starts developing. And it develops with the 5 senses of flesh, 5 senses of the spirit. It starts developing, understanding its surroundings, learning, and as it's doing that, that soul is evolving, and that brain is storing all that information that it's evolving into. So eventually it'll come to the point where when you leave here, your brain has all the memory that it's ever going to have while you're here, and you take that memory with you. That soul takes that memory with it.
Yes.
And merges back into that, and the spirit understands that perfection, understands its imperfection, and emerge, and that spirit evolves based on that soul merging back with that spirit and evolving and giving it an understanding of what it is. So when you leave there to come here, it's not like amnesia, like you forget who you are. There's nothing to remember. That slate is totally empty.
You just move from silence to chaos.
To chaos, exactly.
And in that chaos, you gather and gather and gather data.
Yep.
You fill up the process. And once you're done with the process, you might be 80, 81, 82 years old, 102, 104, whatever it is. And you hit the next process, all of that storage is there. But the reason that you don't use it so much is because you're in a brand new process and you're doing things that you never did before, and you're filling up another bank.
Yeah. And if you think that brain is not a memory bank, you hit it upside the head hard enough, it will forget who it is.
That's right.
It's still the same being. I mean, I'm still Alan Copeland, but I may not remember my name is Alan Copeland because my brain's been damaged. But once the brain is repaired and comes back to itself, that storage unit will be built back up, and I understand that I am Alan Copeland and I have these memories.
Right.
Or sometimes those memories don't come back. But that person is still that same person. It's just the memories inside that brain has been damaged.
You damage the hard drive.
You have damaged the hard drive, that's it. So don't think your thoughts are created by your brain. Your thoughts are created by, in a sense, your 10, I call it outlets, not inlets of the spirit, but outlets. It's 10 things that you do that creates your soul, that creates your nature, your character, and that's how your thoughts are manifested. That's how your mind creates thoughts. Not this mind, not the inside brain here, but like we were talking last week, your heart, your nature, it creates the thoughts, it creates the emotions, it creates all that for your brain to store.
That's right.
Brother Edwin and Roman, and I won't be able to read this, I don't have my glasses, but
When we came here, I think it's not really amnesia, but zero knowledge, unknown to known, needed to learn, feel, and understand. Amnesia is something, a stored knowledge and forgotten. Just my opinion. Well, Brother Edwin, that's my opinion too.
That's just what we were saying.
It's not a matter of amnesia, it's a matter of starting a new process. And in starting a new process, I mean, you can have, let me put it like this, you can have a chief engineer who drew up a complete blueprint of electronics and mechanics and everything else in this brand new Ford pickup truck. But I'm not going to use very much of that blueprint if I'm getting into a big diesel and going to drive an 18-wheeler down the road. It's a totally different process. I don't lose any of the Ford pickup truck process that I put all that data in. But what I do is I enter another process where I don't need it. And so I'm building another process. I'm learning how to rebuild diesels, and I'm learning how to use the gears, and I'm learning how to, and on and on and on, all the different things you need to learn about that. So it's not that I took on amnesia and lost all of my Ford thinking. It's just that I moved into a process of diesel, semi, 18-wheeler truck thinking. And I got to start over and learn more. So all of the gurus out there on amnesia, just think of it a little while, and you'll realize that it really is not that. What it is at sometimes 1,000 times in a lifetime. You'll start over. You know, when I was a young man, I worked at a place called J&J Tire Company. And I'm going to tell you, me and this other guy named Doug, we worked together on trucks, we worked together on cars, we worked together on semis, and we could change out a set of tires quicker than anybody. They would time us, and then whoever done the best, you know, you got bonuses and this and that and that because you satisfied your customer. Well, when I left J&J Tire and I went into the paper company, there wasn't a whole lot about tires I hadn't learned. I learned that you don't throw tires in a hydropulver. You learn those kind of things, but it's a totally different process. I learned about paper. I learned about chemistry. I learned about, and I started over. And then, after learning all the processes and being a stock prep helper and a fourth hand and a winderman and a back tender and a machine tender and all these things and all these processes, they said, Don, you're really good at things. And what we like to do is we'd like to bring you over into management and get you a degree in human resources, and we want you to be a human resource leader for the whole corporation. And you know what? I didn't do much that had to do with the chemistry of paper, nor did I do much that had to do with changing tires when I went into the human resource department. I started over and began to rebuild data again. It wasn't amnesia. I lost all the things I learned about tires, and it wasn't amnesia that I lost all the things I learned about paper. I just went into another process of human resource and start over and build the data again. So now I got 3 drawers full of industrial revolution in my brain. And if I ever go back out there again, and start up in some other process, I'll start filling up a fourth drawer. But I never lost the other three. Just come to a new process and didn't need to use it so much. You came to a new process when you entered human civilization, and that's why you started over. Anything else? Aubrey wants to say something. I can feel it. Okay. I was thinking about that. I thought, Alan and I were in here today. We were working on my kitchen, and there was a wire running through the cabinet. It took us about 10 minutes to figure out how we could adjust that wire.
Yeah, we did.
So we finally come up with a way to do it. But in the midst of doing it, fire flew through the house and everything.
I'm electrocuted myself.
And I got to think, and then we was both scared to death of it. It was like a snake in the house. We didn't want to touch it. And I thought, we knew so little about electricity talking to us, and we were saying, whoa, wait a minute. His brain, his drawer full of electronics, electricity, and what it can do, the positives and the negatives, the ground. But me, because my drawer is not. What time is it? Okay.
This time I got the time right.
The Bible is full of patterns that we go through. The processes we go through are everyone new. All that you gain. You're not losing. You're just moving into something new. And there may come a time when you use a lot of it. And you may not. But you have the process in the bank. So, as we think on this, let's realize 2020, it's going to change some more things for us. As we think more, pay attention more, it's going to change some more things for us. So, be thinking on those things. Be thinking about all of our processes, all of our thinking when it comes to the heart, the mind, the frequencies, the dimensions, and I'm sure as we go through those, might not be my generation, might not be yours, but some generation is going to break through a process, and they're going to see a lot of people doing a lot of things in a realm, just like you look through water. You ever go to an aquarium, you see all those big fish going every which way, they're in another dimension. Oxygen's different, the hydrogen's different, their body's different, everything about them is different, and you're looking right at them. They're right there. And that's exactly what's going to happen one day. I don't know how it's going to happen, but we're going to break these dimensional processes and frequencies, and the veil is going to disappear. We're going to be looking at one another. I know this is going to sound crazy to you, but Aquaman, the last movie, Aquaman, kind of woke me up to that. I was like, wow, there are so many dimensions that we know nothing about. There may be whole civilizations living in those oceans, but this eye ain't picking them up. There may be entire civilizations by the millions living in the skies that we're looking at, but this eye's not picking them up. There may be walking right here in the earth, breathing the same oxygen and hydrogen, but their helium's a little different, and this is and we're not picking them up. We're not seeing it. And one day, it'll all develop and break around us. And I'm done with my craziness. Some people say, why? What's the big deal? To me, the big deal is everybody wanted to fly away. The big deal to me is we don't have to. We're all together right here. Let's break down the walls, the middle walls and the veils of partition, and fellowship with one another. Anything else? You want to play a...
No, I can't.
Okay.
Just cough. I can't sing.
I was here. He's getting a little bit of a cold.
I'm on a new inhaler, and every time I start an inhaler for my asthma, it makes me cough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to get with the doctor and see what's going on.
Okay. Well, let's join hands, and I'm still having a little bit of trouble with the live broadcast. It's my trouble. It's a new process I've moved into, and I kind of flub it up once in a while. So if it didn't work tonight, it's me. Our technician done an excellent job, so I'll get there. As we stand here, our hands together, those of you out there with us, let's put our hands all together. Let's trust, let's put our hearts together, let's put our energies together. There are people out there that need a touch, very strong touch from us for their healing. Brother Darrell, different ones all across the earth. They write me continually. If I stood in here and tried to name them all, I'd have a stack inches and inches thick of people that need a touch from us. Let it be so in the name of Jesus Christ. Under his authority, we stand here and we declare all the desires that we have for one another in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.